Everyone. I hope your Friday is treating you well. I'm very excited for this training today. Leslie has been so kind to agree to come in and share her program with you. Leslie Walker is the program manager for Tourism ALL-a-Bama. And Leslie, when I heard about your program, I got very excited because I feel like this is a very compassionate and relevant program for our families. I think it's very unique. And so I'm excited for our caregivers to hear about this resource and hopefully spread the word. So a little housekeeping prior to we get going here. Oh, we got to let somebody else in here. So if you are interested in participating in the post survey, please put your email address in the chat. This is a way for you to give us your feedback, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But most importantly, it's an opportunity for you to share with us any information you want us to cover for future trainings. I do take your guys' feedback very seriously. It's very valuable to me. I want to make sure that whatever I'm putting out is received well. So please give me those ideas if you have them. Of course, the survey is optional. If you don't want to participate, that's okay. But if you do, please put your email in the chat. Also, Leslie says that during her presentation, if you have questions, comments, anything that you want to share with us, feel free to unmute or add in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat as we go. Leslie said this is going to be a very casual, friendly space for us to just kind of have a conversation. So please don't hesitate if you have questions or comments, please participate with us in that way. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and give it over to Leslie and take it away. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate you reaching out, Jenny. I know we've been trying to coordinate schedules for a while, so I'm excited to be here. I have been sick though, like lots of people have, so pardon me if my voice goes in a place or two. But back to explaining my opening slide, I have done this presentation for government meeting groups and people who hold conferences. And why I hold this slide up front is to say that one of the best practices that I teach them that when they're doing a presentation for anyone with any sensory issues, that the fewer words on a slide, the better. And that's why I say men of few words are the best men. But I say that to say many of my slides have many words, so please ignore them. I don't do as I say. And the reason for that is that you'll find out later in the presentation, we provide this slide deck to the people who take the training so that they can pass it on to others and refer back to it. And then it makes sense when they look at it out of the context of me delivering it. That's why so many words. But we'll get started. I want to give you a little bit of background on me because I think it informs where this training came from. I volunteered for United Cerebral Palsy, who developed this program, and where Jenny's Alabama Lifespan Respite Program resides at UCP of Huntsville and Tennessee Valley. I volunteered for them for over a decade while I was in the hospitality industry. I was in the hospitality, hotel business, and convention and visitors bureau for the city of Huntsville for pretty much about 30 years of my career. And when I got ready to step away from that for a while, the kind folks at UCP who I'd known for a long time said, why don't you come and do what you do for us for a while? And that was kind of in the space of fundraising and events and public relations. So I joined the actual UCP team back in 2018, and things were going along swimmingly until right about the spring of 2020 when events and fundraising and public relations became kind of a moot point. So the genius that is Cheryl Smith, the CEO at UCP, came to me and said, in order to keep you busy and us working and developing new things for our clients, how do we take your knowledge and love of hospitality and our clients and create something entirely new that we can get grant funded that is a benefit to our community? And so that's where this program was born, was marrying those ideas. My tourism background and then the community at large with sensory issues or any kind of physical disability. So that's where this came from, and we're kind of going to dive into what it is. This training, we will talk a lot about autism specifically because it was something that I knew that I could speak to hotels and attractions and visitor entities and they would understand, because that is who the audience for this is. We are working to actively train tourism destinations, restaurants, hotels, museums, visitor centers to be much more sensory aware. And so we started with autism because we knew that that was something that those who may or may not have someone with sensory diagnoses in their life would understand. But we make sure to stress in our training that there are dozens of diagnoses that also include sensory sensitivities or sensory needs, and that folks should consider that this community exists, and that some of these processes that we give them and strategies that we give them are to a much greater audience. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I have a couple of yippy dogs here who are very needy, and you may hear them pipe up a time or two. So anyway, we make sure to stress that there are other diagnoses that these issues speak to as well. All right. Also, I am not a lone individual who knows all things about anything. So we reached out to an advisory council to form this training, and that included caregivers and end users and other hospitality industry folks who worked in this space so that we could get a holistic kind of idea, and of course the professionals there at UCP, of the ways to think about the strategizing to develop this program for tourism. So these are quotes that I share from a mom who was on our board at UCP, that I make sure I share with these hotels about her own son, who at the time we wrote this was an adult driving a car who was a student at UAH, but had, of course, an autism spectrum diagnosis. And she would talk about their experiences traveling, like going to the botanical gardens, which he loved, but he wanted to choose where he wanted to go within the gardens when he wanted to go there. And she talked about checking into a hotel and wait times could cause meltdowns, and then sleeping in rooms near elevators and ice machines and noises. And so we wanted to make sure that we started hotels thinking about these sensory triggers that might be within their own properties. And then I went on to, since I am not a medical professional, just sort of lay out a definition of what autism and autism spectrum disorder is, and how it reveals itself through both sensory seeking and sensory needs, and just sort of give the statistics of, according to the CDC, that they measure at the age of 8 that there are 1 in 36 kiddos with an autism spectrum diagnosis. Now, when I wrote this training in 2020, that number was 1 in 54, and I'm sure a lot of you know these numbers are rising. And once again, these numbers don't include the other sensory sensitive conditions or diagnoses that people may have. So I make sure to stress this is not a small group of people. This could be any of us at any given time in our lives. And so that these hospitality businesses are future proofing their destination by thinking of speaking to these groups. We also make sure that we stress that it doesn't affect any specific ethnicity or socioeconomic background, but that it does affect boys 4 times more than girls. And that will be a little bit more relevant in a bit here. And then we talk about what are sensory sensitivities and other challenges that come along with those, like anxiety and depression and attention difficulties. And when we first started training in 2020, I thought, what better group than tourism to relate to what it must be like to have anxiety, depression, and attention issues? Because if you're not in that industry, but almost everyone had a really tough time, but tourism was hit especially hard. So they were much more open to these ideas of how do we find individuals to enjoy our properties, particularly in a time when no one else was traveling, because a lot of people who wanted to get away and had sensory issues still traveled during COVID because no one else was. And so it was an ideal time to go places in some ways. All right, so these are just some statistics that I share with them so they understand once again the possibilities of making sure they're much more inclusive. And that is that, you know, in North America, there's over 20 million people who are parents to one or more child who has an autism spectrum disorder. And these are the numbers that I try to make sure hit home with them. And that when those families are asked, do you take family vacation? 87% of them said no. But then they were asked if there were autism friendly options, would you? And 93% said yes. So we're able to explain to these folks in tourism that if you make yourself more inclusive, there's an entire group of people who will come to see you and travel. So even above and beyond being the right thing to do, it's just good business. And so this helped us also get in the door with a lot more properties and them understand the relevance in a selfish way, if you will. So, and this was a number I just pulled, and it's a little older statistic, but we're trying to really expand the knowledge beyond just sensory, but just to think about the disability traveler as a whole. And at the end, I'll tell you a little bit more exciting stuff for beyond developmental disability, also physical disability that's happening in North Alabama, which I'm sure you'll all be excited to hear. But just the 1 in 6 number of children, and these are folks, these dates were 2009 to 2017. So we're talking about an aging America. So people who are going to be in our workforces and traveling through our communities. And so we just like to stress, once again, not a small subset of the population, the bulk of the population. And I try to explain to folks that as we age, if we're all lucky enough to age, odds are we're going to age into a disability. So let's prepare now to be a much more inclusive space. All right. Oh, I got that slide in there twice here, or I skipped it, went backwards. Okay, so this is just a short video I share just to give them some perspective of what it's like to travel through the world with a sensory sensitivity, so that folks who, once again, may or may not know someone who has a sensory sensitivity can, be a little bit more empathetic. However, I will tell you that I have not delivered a training in 4 years that we've been doing this, that 80% of the room hasn't raised their hand when I ask if you have anyone in your life with any kind of sensory sensitivity. And as a matter of fact, my very first training that I did ever, because this started out as a statewide program that was funded across the state. We're now just in North Alabama due to funding issues. But the very first training I did in Tuscaloosa, a father came to me and recognized behaviors in an adult college-age daughter that had gone undiagnosed, that we were able to connect to resources. So once again, like, we're excited that we're out there making people much more aware of the resources that are available. So I'm just going to click this little video so that we can watch.
Leslie, there's no sound.
I'm not sure why. We'll see.
I know when you share screen, there's an option that you can click for sound.
Let me pause real quick.
Okay.
And I was looking for, apologies, we should have checked that before. Share sound. There we go. Let's try again. Right now it's just.
We can hear it.
One, two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8, 9. Take my hand. I'm not naughty. I'm autistic. And I just get too much information.
We find that often touches folks to, like, have an understanding that maybe they do know someone with a sensory sensitivity. They just didn't realize it before. I apologize that it won't go full screen. For some reason, the last 2 times YouTube has not cooperated with me on going full screen. I don't know if that's a YouTube hiccup or what. So apologies for that. Okay, so then we relate it to them personally. Why, like, what is it about hotels that automatically make them unfriendly environments for someone with sensory sensitivities? They have a lot of bright lighting because the health department says they have to, and there's noisy lobbies and other people, and they're already unfamiliar surroundings. So we just sort of highlight this to them so they realize and they start to look at it from a different framework. I often joked when I was in the hotel business, we could run a great hotel if it weren't for all those guests, because you're going to have family reunions talking in the lobby or soccer kids playing in the hall, and so there's a lot of things you can't do anything about except try to work around them, and that's what we try to give them the tools to do. Now I stress when I show these TikTok videos to them that to go back to those initial comments about that autism or autism spectrum disorder affects everyone equally across all ethnicities and socioeconomic backgrounds, and it's 4 times more likely to be boys. However, These are the people creating content on autism on TikTok, and this is what they look like. So please take it with a grain of salt that this is not the face of autism spectrum disorder. It is very diverse. These are just the people I was able to draw relevant content from. So I do stress that, and we sort of put it in the framework for them to relate of how it affects them in the hotel industry. I'm not going to play all of these for you because this is, I just want you to be aware of the type of training. Well, maybe I will play them all that we're delivering to these hotels so that you can see what we're telling them on behalf of families who are going to be their end users. So that if you have something to contribute where you're like, this is not my experience. Have you thought about this? We are always open to expanding and making this a much more effective training for hotels. I will say that everyone who uses our program, we ask for feedback afterwards so we can let an individual hotel know that they have a flashing exit sign on the second floor that's distracting, or the elevator is, has this issue. We make sure we try to share as much as possible so they can continually improve. So this first lady is Abby. If you've ever watched a show called Love on the Spectrum on Netflix, she's on that show. But we relate this to hotels and attractions like amusement parks specifically about thinking about sensory seekers who might utilize their amenities like gyms or their swimming pools or their water parks so that someone who's unfamiliar with disability doesn't think they're needing to bubble wrap these guests and protect them from experiences, that they might actually be seeking out these experiences. So this is Abby. Hopefully we fixed our sound issue.
So what did you just say about being in water?
It's sensory needs.
So how do you feel?
I feel nice and relaxed. It's like pressure.
Okay, right. So it's deep pressure, right?
Like when I'm in the deep end, like, and I go to the bottom, it feels extra sensory needs.
So that makes you feel good.
Yeah, because those are some of my sensory needs.
Right. You have a lot of sensory needs or a little? What do you
A
think?
little bit, not as much as I used to.
So it's gone down a little bit, but you still need sensory input, right?
Yeah, working out's another one.
What does that do?
Keeps me focused. I think I took an adaptive PE class that really helped.
Right. Adaptive physical education when you were in high school, right?
Regular PE. I think at Dixie Canyon I had to get pulled out of class.
For adaptive PE?
Yeah.
Okay. So how
And
do
I
you,
did not want to do it.
do you have any advice for parents of kids that have lots of sensory needs?
I'm not sure, because when I was little, I used to go put everything in my mouth.
You did. That was called tactile input.
I would put sand, rocks, leaves, rabbit poop.
That is true, ladies and gentlemen.
So we also try to keep it light with this great kind of content so that people can see the human element. This next one we share with restaurants and also hotels who have restaurants, just to consider thinking about what that experience is like for everyone who may come into their establishment. Oh, I gotta hit just the right.
I was just saying, I was considering wearing headphones because I'm hungry and I'm grumpy, and it's like worse when I'm hungry because in the autistic brain, the center where your hearing is perceived, where sound is perceived, it crosses over where pain is perceived, and that's why loud noises are painful. That's why it hurts. It's not necessarily that I have better hearing. I mean, I'm not really getting stabbed in the ear holes, but it feels like I'm being stabbed in the ear holes. So that's why autistic people cover their ears, because it hurts. It does hurt because it's crossed with where you're perceiving pain, so your brain perceives the sound as pain.
So I think that's interesting and definitely frames the experience, I think, better for destinations. And then this last one gets me every time because I was in the hotel business, as I said, for 20 plus years, actively working inside a hotel. And I always tried my very best to deliver the best possible customer service experience. But in all honesty, until I started researching and developing this program, I never really considered people were traveling through the world differently than me, and that you may not, the whole component of invisible disability was not really a concept in that time in the 80s and 90s when I was in, the industry, the late 80s and 90s when I was in the industry, and even the early 2000s. Now we're much more aware, but I always try to make the people working the front desk, housekeeping, food and beverage, think about the guests that they cannot see, do not know, have sensory issues or needs, that they may come across in their daily life and never realize it. So this one in particular, I think, speaks to that. And so I always like to share that. Let's make sure it's going to let me click on her because I got to move some stuff on my screen. Here we go.
I'm at a hotel and I would really like breakfast. And I've never called the hotel or asked for room service before, but I think that I can because I've looked at what I want for breakfast and it says all I have to do is I can dial star and then I can say what I want and then they'll send it to me. And I'm autistic, if y'all are just seeing this for the first time and don't know. And so this is weird. Oh my god, I'm so nervous. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I wanted to take a video. Okay, dial star, and then I say that, hi, can I get, could you send a yogurt parfait up to room 3003? And I bet they'll say, yes, ma'am. And I'll go, okay, thank you. And that'll probably be it. Okay, I pick, yogurt parfait. That's all I want. Yogurt parfait, room 3003. Okay, pick it up. Hi, I was wondering if you could send a yogurt parfait up to room 3003 for me this morning. Could I get a coffee, actually? Milk, please. Thank you so much. I did it, and it's coming in OCC, and it's fine. And no one's mad at me or anything. Oh, that was awful.
So yeah, so we like to always stress that if you don't think these guests are staying in your hotel, then you're wrong. The numbers just don't bear it out. The disabilities you can't see, you have guests in your hotels every single day. So how can you think about more broadly accommodating folks? And of course, these examples are much more in the, like I said, invisible disability space. So maybe if you're aware all the time to these disabilities you cannot see, it makes you even more receptive to those you can, is the ultimate goal. So here are some strategies that we share with them that families utilize, and that we talk about how then they can adapt them. So creating quiet spaces to calm down. So we talk with hotels about how they can adapt, and I'll talk about that. Visiting new places at quiet times, and so we encourage them that this is great. Folks who would be there in your off season or on the shoulder dates, trying earplugs or noise canceling headphones to help with sound sensitivities. Wait times, so thinking about pre-ordering meals when visiting a restaurant, and then talking about the sensory seekers with having extra fidget or being stocked up with supplies and gadgets and that sort of thing to make sure you're delivering those sensory needs. But here's how we tell hotels they can adapt. They do this training, right? And then they pass it on to the rest of their team. We give them sensory kits to use at the hotel, and I'll tell you what's in those. And then they create a rate code program. Now, this is more internal, but just to kind of explain it to you guys so you know how it works, is if you work for Boeing or Toyota, or even if you're with the the AAA or the AARP, hotels have a rate code. When you book your reservation, they have a little box that jumps up and says this person's with Toyota or Boeing or whomever. We ask that they do the same thing with Tourism ALL-a-Bama, so that a guest never has to self-identify. They know that it's Tourism ALL-a-Bama, and that connects to them that these are the guests who get the sensory kit, or at least get offered the sensory kit, so they can adjust in the moment, and a guest never has to self-identify. So that's very important to us, and we stress that. Then they get a listing on our website and receive periodic updates, and I update their kits as long as they stay in touch with me and say, hey, this piece went missing or whatever, because the kits are designed to stay at the hotels and be reused, so that any guest can use them. But we replenish them if they get broken or pieces walk away, as they inevitably do. And then this program is promoted by Visit North Alabama. Visit North Alabama is who is funding this program right now, so that Any attraction all across the 16 northern counties of Alabama can get this training for absolutely free. I train, like I said, I've said over and over again, hotels, visitor centers, amusement parks, museums. Coming up in the next few weeks, I have a couple of hotels, the Cook Museum in Decatur, who already does some great sensory days and has a very great, compelling social story on their website. So they're really working to be more inclusive, but they're going to take our training too, just so they have another layer. And then we ask that they do an annual renewal training. They do not remain on our website unless they've done a renewal training, because hotels change staff a lot. And we want to make sure we're not sending guests to a hotel that doesn't have a trained person on staff or isn't aware of what the current training is. Here's the part that you guys can engage with. On the right-hand side here, the Practice Stay program. So once we've created those preferred accounts with these properties, we set up billing with them and we ask them to receive feedback. If you go to our website, which is tourismall-a-bama.org, because we want to welcome all the guests. So it's Alabama with with Alabama. So Alabama with 2 L's, tourismall-a-bama.org. At the very top of the screen, you can see a tab that says Request a Practice Stay. And all you have to do is go in and put when you want to go, where you want to go, how many beds you need, and upload a simple diagnosis, an IEP, anything that shows a sensory diagnosis of any kind, not just autism spectrum, any sensory diagnosis, anything. And then those come to me, I make those reservations, and 1 free night is paid for by this program, and that is all funded by Visit North Alabama. Currently, once again, we used to have statewide, and it's not per household, it's per person with diagnosis. So I've had families with multiple kids who have diagnoses that stay a full weekend, break it up into 1 night here, 1 night there. I had a family stay at the beach for 4 nights when we were a statewide program, because they have 4 children with 4 different diagnoses. So yeah, it's per person with a diagnosis, and it's per annual year that we're funded. So a lot of folks will go each year to somewhere new or go back to a property they really enjoyed. So those are important facts to know. And right now, since we're being funded only by Visit North Alabama, believe me, we're fighting every day to get back to statewide. Because originally we were funded by the Alabama Council on Developmental Disabilities, because they were looking for innovative programs during the pandemic. And they actually, their charter federally said they could only fund projects for 1 year. And they funded us for 3, because they said this was the most successful program that they had ever had as far as end users utilizing it. We also received some additional funding for a few years from the city of Huntsville, and then Visit North Alabama had funded to a small degree for all of those years. But when our funding went away statewide, they really picked up the ball for the northern 16 counties and funded us fully in the northern 16 counties. But some of those are smaller communities, and we're getting campgrounds and small and tiny houses on board. We have a tiny house community that's going to be coming up in training. But right now, our major cities are Huntsville, Decatur, Florence. We've done trainings in some other, we have one coming up in DeKalb County. So we're expanding. We're trying to get more properties in there, but there's some great ones that are a part of the program. Just if you want a weekend getaway, just to try it for the first time, if you're not someone who's traveled or have been afraid to travel, or you just need some respite, right, Jenny? You can do a night stay just right down the street if you want to. These are great properties who've really invested in training and staying trained. And most of the ones on our website right now have been in the program for the entirety of the program and retrain every single year to stay a part of the program. All right, here's what's in the sensory kits that we give them. They are in a handy dandy tote bag that says Tourism ALL-a-Bama, because when they see that rate code we talked about on the computer, it says Tourism ALL-a-Bama. The bags say Tourism ALL-a-Bama, so that the front desk can remember these 2 things go together. So it's a handy dandy tote bag that has sunglasses for those who might have sensory sensitivity, light sensory sensitivities. They have a weighted blanket, and the recommendation is 10% of total body weight, but since we couldn't possibly do a blanket for every body weight out there, we stuck with about a 7-pound weight, not too heavy for or dangerous for a little one, but enough for adult. I have slept with it many nights my own self, and it's quite good. And it's also commercial. It's one of the only ones I could find that could go through commercial laundry. so that the hotels would know it'd be safe to go through their laundry system. And we purposely make it gray so it stands out amongst their laundry. There are ear protectors in every kit, and there are fidget devices in every kit. We purposely chose these items because everything in this kit can be wiped down and sanitized with a Clorox wipe or a Lysol wipe, and then the blanket itself can go through commercial laundry. The other items we encourage them to keep at the front desk that we provide are a personal size whiteboard with a marker in case they have anyone who is nonverbal that they need to communicate with. And then we have these communication cards as well in case a little who is nonverbal gets separated from mom and dad. They have some basic things on them like I'm hungry, I'm hurt, those sorts of things. And then we have a white noise machine if folks need it for their room. We stress always that someone does not have to be staying at the hotel with our program to utilize any of these items. Please just let anyone who needs them utilize them. You do not have to be a guest of ours. So
Hey,
these are kind of
Leslie.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. We got a couple questions in the chat.
Sorry, I told you I'm bad about the chat. You have to yell at me.
No, it's good. They just popped up. So
Yeah.
one question is it too late to report that a hotel in Huntsville did not provide a kit to us last year?
No, no, that'd be great. Like I said, we're training them all the time because they get new people all the time. And so all you can do is the best you can do. And I will tell you, just to clarify, the process is once you make your reservation with me, I make the reservation. I send them a reminder the week before you come to say, heads up, just a reminder. This individual is checking in on this day. Here's my credit card authorization. So we don't just make that reservation 6 months out and abandon them. We do a reminder. So we try our best. But please tell me who forgot to get a kit.
Yeah. And while we're waiting for her to respond, Crystal asked, can information be shared about that? Crystal, what that are you referring to? If you want to unmute or add in the chat so we can clarify your question.
Specifically, the hotel stay. Actually, this is a a perfect Zoom to be doing today. My oldest son has to go to Auburn. He does not travel well. We will be staying in a hotel, and I know Auburn isn't the service area, but we don't vacation and we don't stay overnight because we know like he's going to have issues, and no matter how prepared I feel like we are, I know that there's still going to be issues. So knowing that this is out there and this exists for certain areas is very helpful. The information I was asking is because I'm going to be terrible at remembering what areas. I know Huntsville is one of the areas, and that's one of the areas that we recently kind of contemplated like staying in the area because there's so much to do.
Yeah.
So
there's like 7 hotels. There's like 7 hotels who trained in Huntsville.
Okay.
And we do a rotation so they all get their practice, but also
Yeah.
I try to look at what amenities or what you want to be near, and I try to do as many, it's all based on availability, who needs practice, and where you're going. I try to make all those things match up. Decatur, Florence are the big cities. I've done some trainings in like smaller communities, more rural communities, but they have steps they have to go through with me to get approved. Like if I do the training and give them a kit, but they don't do that rate code part, they're not on my list because they cannot do fully. So those 3 cities are the biggest about participating and doing well right now. So but we're adding once again in Jackson County. I'm doing a training for Retreat, which is a cool little like glamping tiny house community that's going to be nice. And DeKalb, I'm going to speak to all of their partners at a monthly meeting coming up in a couple months. So hopefully we add some hotels there as well, so we have more options. Once again, I'd love to go back to statewide because we had a hotel chain in Orange Beach that owned 4 hotels that actually recorded our training, and even their hotels who are not in Alabama watched our training during new hire training through human resources, so that even their hotels that are in Virginia or Florida at least had an awareness from our training. So we'd love to go back statewide. We're the only program like this in the country. And we're frequently asked to go. I was just asked to speak at a conference in San Francisco for people to duplicate our program because it's the only one like it anywhere.
That's awesome. So I guess I'm asking, how do I contact you and set up? Because ideally, I would love to set for us to at least have an overnight stay. We haven't vacationed in 5 years. Both of my sons have diagnosis, and they are on very opposite ends of the spectrum. My youngest son is a sensory seeker. He loves noise. He loves to put things in his mouth. And my oldest is very much, that's too much light. That's too much sound. The flashing light, his thing is fluorescent lights, the buzzing for fluorescent. He can't go to a grocery store. So yeah,
Since
I
I've
guess.
been doing this program, I would say that it's so funny. I travel all over the world with what I do, because I also do tourism consulting. And now, because I've been doing this training, I can't walk into a hotel room without going, oh, the fan in that bathroom exhaust is a little out of balance. I can hear it. So
Yeah.
I'm so tuned into it now that I notice those things too. But yeah, just go to that tourismallabama.org website, the 2 L's, Tourism Alabama, and at the top, just hit request a practice day, and you tell me where you want to go, when you want to go, and just upload a screenshot of those diagnoses, and we'll get your reservation made. It's really quick. I'm the single point of contact. I do every training, I do every reservation, I pay for every reservation, and so yeah, and I make sure those sensory kits get back out to whoever that hotel that didn't deliver one is. I haven't forgotten that.
Yes, so that is actually Town Place Suites in Huntsville.
Okay, they just went back through the training, and I will say, I mean, literally, when I say just a week, 2 weeks ago, they just went back through the training and have a new kit on, and I now have new points of contact there. I think they were in sort of a transition with some leadership there, and the information was not getting relayed. So I will make a note of that, but I now feel like I have much better contacts there since I just trained them again, like I said, within the last 2 weeks. So they hopefully will be better. Thank you for letting me know. Do I have more questions before I move on to the next thing?
There are no more in the chat.
Okay, well, don't be shy. We're all friends here. All right, so those are the things we provide. So this is what we tell hotels they can do above and beyond. Create a chill zone or quiet space. And we're not saying that you have to dedicate a space, because most of the time hotels aren't built with enough storage space, meeting space, office space anyway. But we do say to them, if you have a lobby full of people checking in and you can clearly see that someone is having a moment, whether that's because they've been in a car for 8 hours or because there might be an unknown diagnosis, there is nothing wrong with respectfully walking up to someone and saying, hey, I know it's crazy and crowded in here. If this is too much to be in this space with all these folks, we do have an empty meeting room around the corner if you just like to wait there, or we can text you when your room is ready if you'd like to wait elsewhere. So we just want them to be aware, to think about their resources if it's an empty meeting space that's quieter or whatever. Food and beverage pre-ordering, for hotels that have a restaurant outlet, we talk about how pre-pandemic this might have been a crazy thing to think about. Now it should be, very easy to deliver those types of services. And we do talk to them about having the specialty menu options, like gluten-free options on those breakfasts that are included in the hotel, because if you have people with autism diagnosis in your life, you know that that's a very common co-diagnosis is a gluten allergy. So we encourage gluten-free options and individually packaged items for folks who may have the sensory needs that they don't want, food touching and that sort of thing. So we do mention those things specifically. And then, by golly, seek out your local information on places who have sensory days or sensory hours so that you can provide some information about what folks can see and do around and near you while they're staying with you. And this is a brand new one, is the conduct a noise audit, because like I said, I've gotten so tuned into it myself that I'm now encouraging hotels, if you have a downtime, like 30 minutes or an hour from the, in your front desk clerk, because it's quiet and you've got more than one person on shift, pick a room. Go sit in it, sit in silence and listen. Listen to what you hear. How loud is the AC? Does that fan need adjusting in the bathroom? What are you hearing, so that some of these maintenance issues that are creating those sounds, like the buzzing light fixtures, can maybe be repaired or changed in some way. So that's a new thing we're encouraging them to do. Here's some of those long words I told you about. But to speak to your point earlier, Crystal, this was a kiddo named Brian. His mom worked in the mental health field. Family hadn't been on a vacation in 7 years, and he had typically developing siblings, so no one was getting to experience anything because they were concerned specifically about Brian. But they did one of our practice days. This is when Birmingham was still a part of it. Last year, the year before, and then went to the Birmingham Zoo, which also had sensory. They have a sensory space there. They had sensory components in place, and they had a fantastic time. And they loved the hotel, and the hotel was receptive, and so it sort of changed everything for them. And this is a testimonial that's this long. That's extracted from a testimonial that was this long that Mom wrote for us. And sometimes things go wrong, like the Town Place Suites, but I would say by and large that we've been so grateful that when families go through our program, even if things jump the tracks and they don't go just right and people forget the kits or they end up having noisy neighbors, we've been so grateful that the community of those with sensory sensitivities has been like, thank you for at least trying, which is kind of all that you can do when you put these services into someone else's hands, particularly someone who's making, sometimes minimum wage at a front desk and just got there a month ago and they threw them to the wolves because the industry has been so short-staffed that they're just filling spaces. And so that's why we try to check in to make sure that anyone who needs the information has it so that you guys get the best delivery of service. There's some additional resources on our Tourism ALL-a-Bama website. Like if you do travel, you can get adjusted TSA screening cards where you don't have to go through the standard x-ray and all the things that might trigger some sensory problems. There are programs that do flight simulations. So if you're worried that you're going to be taking a flight soon, you can go to certain airports at certain times of the year and go through ticketing and TSA and actually get on a plane and go around the runway just to have the experience to sort of prepare for a future trip. There are some autism travel family blogs here. So lots of great resources in addition to the requesting the practice stay. And like I said, this is a program of United Cerebral Palsy, but funded through Visit North Alabama. And here's the extra little part I wanted to tell you about what's happening in Visit North Alabama. Currently, I am working with Visit North Alabama on a year-long process of bringing in travel content creators who have varying disability needs. Last week, I hosted a content creator who has a traumatic brain injury and therefore has sensory needs, and she's also a below-the-knee amputee. We have wheelchair users coming in. We have people with vision loss coming in. So we're working with 10 different content creators throughout the year to host them, take them to accessible experiences in Visit North Alabama, because in July of this year, Visit North Alabama is launching an accessibility travel portion of their website to highlight what accessible tourism options there are, including our program. They're also partnering with Will the World to come in, and any hotel that wants to participate do the actual measurements of the hotel rooms to confirm that they are wheelchair accessible. So Visit North Alabama is truly really leaning into the accessibility space and trying to make tourism and travel way more accessible all across the northern part of the state. So that's super exciting, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Leslie, we do have another question in the chat.
Yeah.
How can we better find hotels that have special needs accommodations? Is the front desk supposed to ask upon checking in, or are we supposed to request? We booked online and didn't see it advertised.
Through our program or just online in general?
I don't know, Crystal, if you want to unmute and answer that. Oh, she says both. Both.
So you have booked through our website directly with a hotel?
Okay. Yeah, so you got to go to tourismalabama.org to book. Yes.
Okay, so if you request a practice stay, we will make sure that we're informing them. So, and sometimes there's still going to be a loss, a delivery of service that doesn't happen. If you book independently through our website, our hope is they start recognizing that, but that's why it's a practice stay. So they continue to recognize Tourism ALL-a-Bama. With booking just at large, I would both put it in your special requests on the reservation and call the hotel directly, because most reservation booking systems are central and they're just disseminating that to the hotels, and sometimes the information doesn't get passed along. So I would call the hotel directly if you're booking through just a booking site. If you're booking through us, we do our level best to request any needs. When North Alabama is finished and Will the World is finished, hotels that have legitimately accessible rooms and how they have legitimately accessible rooms will be clearly listed on the Visit North Alabama website. So once Will the World is done, only the hotels that have, it'll tell you how high the bed is, what the threshold is into the shower, what the grab bar situation is, if you have physical needs. And then only hotels who've been through our sensory program will be listed there as well. I don't know if I under answered or over answered that question.
You answered perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Good. Yay. But I'm super excited about this Visit North Alabama thing. The other thing that I love about this project, since I'm working with travel content creators, bloggers, videographers, we're going to get real life firsthand experience, right? I'm a writer, but I can't write as somebody who has a traumatic brain injury and an amputation about what it was like to be here in North Alabama. So those people are creating content that will live on the Visit North Alabama site so you can see what they experienced from their firsthand perspective while they visited here, what they found challenging, what they found surprisingly accessible. So this is going to be huge. It's really huge, and I'm very proud to be a part of it as we launch this in North Alabama. And there's already, if you go to their website, they have things like accessible hiking trails kind of outlined. So there is information out there. Sadly, not just in our state, but across the industry, it's very hard to sometimes access that information. But we're just fighting all the time. Some big cities out there and other destinations have really embraced it. Mesa, Arizona touts themselves as being the first autism friendly visitor community because they send a lot of their partners through training through a different organization. Myrtle Beach has an autism visitor specific part to their website. Some of the cruise lines do, but I cruise a lot and I don't find anything about a cruise being sensory accessible, even though they've been through Culture City training, if you're familiar with Culture City. So, you know, it's every experience is you do the best you can with training, and then you of course take your own personal precautions and provisions when traveling and try to prepare yourself. But we hope that the practice stay program breaks that seal, Crystal, right? Like, we're going to a hotel in Auburn. We've never been to a hotel. Let's try one close to home that's not our money being lost or spent if it falls all apart and we have to go home. So that's kind of the point of the practice day, is for those hotels to like continue to practice that, stretch that muscle of learning how to be much more accessible and inclusive, but also for families to like take the leap and not lose their own money, which I know that sounds like a crazy way to define that, but it's a reality, right? You don't want to go stay at a $200 a night hotel and in 2 hours you have to go home. So that's what we hope the space we're filling right now is. All right. And so we've already kind of done questions along the way, but you can find us on Facebook at Tourism ALL-a-Bama. We try to share new hotels that are trained there. If we find out about sensory days at local museums and attractions around the region, we try to share those there. Sensory Easters and Santas and all of those things we try to share there. But yeah, and this is how you can reach me specifically outside of the requesting a practice stay on our website. This is actually UCP's phone number, but this email is good to reach me as well. And then of course, through the website, if you message through the Tourism ALL-a-Bama website, all of those come to me. Like I said, I'm the lone soldier there. And so that's it, unless you guys have more questions or want to chat more or tell us what you think could be a good next step.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Leslie. While we have, I want to give you all some time to collect your thoughts if you do have questions or comments for Leslie, but I just want to remind everyone, if you are interested in taking the post survey, please be sure to put your email address in the chat. Please take down Leslie's contact info. I think this is a wonderful program. Like I said in the beginning, it's very compassionate and relevant, and I'm glad somebody is thinking about these things because, like you said, this is not, you know, this affects everybody in some capacity, right? Whether you have a diagnosis yourself or you know someone who has a diagnosis, it's just really, I think it warms my heart. So I appreciate you coming in and telling us about this resource. And I really hope that those of you who attended today or watching the recording, take the leap, right? And I think that practice stay thing is such a brilliant idea, because I have children myself. Traveling is not cheap. And you know, how much of a bummer would it be to book a stay and then have to leave? Okay, so I think it's a very smart option for us to take advantage of. So please take down Leslie's contact info. This training is recorded and it will be shared on our website if you want to go back and watch it or share it. I encourage you all to do that. Are there any questions or comments for Leslie before we break today?
Is there like a one-stop place somewhere where we could find like a list of areas local to us that are doing sensory days without, you know, just going through each I don't know exactly how to ask it, but you know, how to find out about sensory days local to us, or
Yeah.
you know, within an hour or so. Because my oldest, he doesn't travel well. He doesn't like to be in the car. There's just too much going on for him. And my
Where are you
youngest,
based? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
I'm in,
interrupt, Crystal.
you're fine. I'm in Central Alabama, so something like I don't know, maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. That's probably as far as we could go.
Sure. So I wish I had a good answer for you. So North Alabama, once again, that will be part of their website to highlight sensory needs. Like I said, I'm fighting every day to get back statewide because and I've offered what we're doing in North Alabama to state tourism. Alabama State Tourism has a proposal on their desk to do it for what we're doing in North Alabama. It's just finding the right person who cares enough and understands not only how important it is, but that it's a good financial decision. I'm sorry, it just is for tourism. Once again, I am asked to speak at tourism conferences like Travelability across this country, and I get better reception outside of our immediate area than I do in it. People are copying our program with our permission because it's just a good idea. But I will say, I know Birmingham Zoo is in sensory space. They have great sensory space as far as Central goes. In North Alabama, Cook Museum is setting up, if Cook Natural Science Museum, which is a great place, is setting up their sensory days for the summer, and we'll share those on our Facebook. Who else was I was thinking of? I know that there are places in Athens, North Alabama that do all the sensory holidays and like close off streets and we try to share, even outside of our region, we try to share as many as we find on our Facebook page. If I find a sensory Santa in Jasper, Alabama, I'm trying to share it. I try to share everything I can find. Once again, since I'm the lone soldier, it doesn't get shared all the time, but I'll go through frequently and look for, particularly in advance of a big holiday like Easter or something, for anything that I can find for like sensory egg hunts and that sort of thing. But sadly, until we're more of a statewide program, there's no central place. CVBs, visitors bureaus, should be a place to look for. So like the biggest visitors bureau near you, whether that's the Birmingham, I don't know where Central is, or Montgomery or whatever, those visitors bureaus have a site, and some of them will have an accessibility tab. If they don't, tell them about us. If you want to reach out to them and tell them about us, I would love to explain to them how they can duplicate what we do. It's not hard, it's not expensive, it just takes time and compassion.
Thank you, Leslie.
Sorry,
So follow.
you gotta be careful getting me on my soapbox. I will go on forever. I apologize.
Oh, I love a soapbox, Leslie. I love a soapbox. So I would say, yes, follow the Tourism ALL-a-Bama Facebook page. Get that information. I appreciate all the hard work you're doing, Leslie. Leslie Walker, it should be Leslie Runner, right? With the way they got you going around. If are there any more questions before we close today? All right. So thank you again, Leslie, for your time. Thank you, caregivers, for showing up, and community agency reps for showing up. Please spread the word. I think if we can be the squeaky wheel, we can get the grease, right? So share the word as much as you can. Participate if you can. And if you have any questions for Leslie, there's her contact info, or I can always be a liaison for that as well. If you just want to call me or contact me, I
do want to share one more thing. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Please do. No,
I want to make sure I make one more thing clear, particularly since Crystal pointed out that she is in Central Alabama. Though our program is only funded for stays in North Alabama, anyone who lives anywhere in the state of Alabama is eligible for those night stays. So if you live in South Alabama and you want to come to North Alabama, you are eligible to stay here. It is only the places you can stay that is limited to North Alabama. You can come from anywhere in the state, and I want to make sure I was clear about that. So if you're outside of our region, please come visit. We'd love to have you.
Yes, thank you, Leslie. And if you have never been to Huntsville, or if it's been a while since you've been there, we are growing, growing, growing. So there's plenty of stuff to do here. So I would encourage you to take advantage of this program, even if it's just for one night, right? Because change of scenery can be good for all of us, and it's respite, right? It is respite. So it's important that we take advantage of the programs when they're applicable and when they're available. So thank you, everyone. Please enjoy your weekend. If it's sunny and bright outside, take advantage of that. Soak up that sun, get that vitamin D, take your naps, drink your water, and I will see you all hopefully next week. Okay? All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.